Why do some tragedies feel urgent, while others feel complicated? The events don't change, only how the story is told. In the next few minutes, you'll see the structure that creates instant moral clarity, and the structure that quietly teaches you to wait. The thesis made simple.
Regime change for Iran! People of Iran have never, in the past 47 years, never been this close to freeing up themselves from this Islamic regime. So I'm proud to be here.
Showing support for protesters inside Iran and calling on the international community to back up that solidarity with real action.
Media doesn't just report violence, it chooses distance. Sometimes suffering is brought close. One face, one name, one family. Sometimes it's pushed far. Numbers, disputes, context, rebuttals. And distance decides what you're allowed to feel. Not by force, by repetition. Template A, how clarity is built.
To Iran this evening, deadly protests sweeping across that country after the death of a young Iranian woman while in the custody of the morality police, accused of improperly wearing her headscarf.
Iranian authorities denying accusations that Amini suffered blows to the head during her arrest, saying it was a heart ailment that killed her. But her family disputes that claim, as do the thousands of Iranian women taking to the streets.
Template A is intimacy. It usually goes like this: a face, a name, a short story, a family reaction, a moment you can picture, and then, quietly, a conclusion about what it means. That isn't manipulation, it's storytelling, and storytelling is a moral engine. Be honest, do you lean in when there's a face? Template B, how hesitation is built.
Bereaved family members are mourning their loved ones, killed in another wave of Israeli strikes. One man who lost his nephew says civilians were targeted in a displacement camp in Jabalia. Israel and Hamas regularly accuse each other of breaching the ceasefire. Nearly 600 Palestinians and 4 Israeli soldiers have been killed since the deal went into effect in October.
Template B does the opposite. Numbers, competing claims, context stacked on context. Language changes, reports say, claims suggest, both sides argue, disputed. And suddenly your emotion gets a new instruction. Wait. Comparison without triggering defensiveness.
Take a look, the latest on the protests in Iran that are now nearing 2 weeks. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has signaled a major crackdown is coming, despite serious warnings from President Trump.
Israel is once again on the prowl against Palestinians. Just days after the ceasefire began holding in Gaza, IDF soldiers have now launched massive raids into Palestinian settlements in the West Bank region. The Israeli military and the Internal Security Service said in a joint statement that they had launched what they termed a broad counter-terrorism operation.
Now here's where people usually stop listening. Coverage of Iran's protests often arrives using template A, proximity. Coverage of Gaza and the West Bank often arrives using template B, distance. Not always, not everywhere, but often enough that your body reacts before your politics do. One pulls you forward, the other hands you a calculator. You're probably about to disagree with me. Good. Just notice why, before you decide if. Steelman credibility anchor.
I really think we're going to have a deal. We have a really good chance of making a deal, and it'll be a lasting deal. We want to have peace. This is beyond Gaza. Gaza's a big deal, but this is really peace in the Middle East.
Make no mistake, President Trump applying real pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to agree to this deal, and it really does feel like a potentially game-changing moment. You've got these indirect talks now underway in Egypt. Phase 1, the president hopes could be agreed as early as this week, would mean a ceasefire, the release of hostages and some Palestinian prisoners, and a partial withdrawal of Israeli troops. The key sticking point is going to be Phase 2, which calls for Hamas to disarm and relinquish power. But I think what's really different this time is President Trump's personal engagement, forcing both sides to end this war.
To be fair, distance isn't always wrong. Numbers can prevent exploitation. Anonymity can protect families. Context can stop manipulation. Those are real ethical reasons. But here's the problem. When distance becomes the default, hesitation becomes a habit. The trap reveal.
They're the images the Islamic regime wants the world to see of Iran after days of a total communications blackout across the country, with anti-government protests now stretching into their 3rd week.
When suffering is individualized, you feel qualified to judge. When suffering is procedural, you feel unqualified. That feeling, I don't know enough yet, sounds like maturity. But it also works like a brake pedal. You're not told to ignore it, you're trained to hesitate. Have you felt this pause and mistaken it for balance? Abundance that numbs.
Israeli forces have bombed multiple locations across Gaza, killing at least 9 Palestinians. The attacks are the latest violations of the ceasefire that came into effect 4 months ago. Residential areas in Jabalia in the north of the Strip and Khan Yunis in the south were hit. These areas fall within the so-called Yellow Line. That's the boundary separating the Israeli military from Palestinian residential areas.
Here's the paradox. More coverage doesn't always create urgency. Sometimes it creates distance. Constant updates turn suffering into an ongoing situation you're meant to consume responsibly. And responsible consumption often looks like nothing. No conspiracy, just architecture. This doesn't require secret meetings. It doesn't require coordination. Once a story is placed inside the conflict template, the output becomes predictable. Think of it like architecture. No one has to agree where the hallway goes if the building already funnels everyone the same way. So here's the test I want you to run next time a story hits your feed. Ask 3 questions. Face or ledger? Meaning or dispute? Knowledge or format? If your hesitation comes from formatting, not facts, that's not neutrality. That's design working as intended. Comment 1 example. No outlets named, where the format changed how you felt. When moral clarity is produced in one place and deferred in another, audiences learn. They learn where outrage is appropriate and where it's premature. And when suffering becomes data long enough, numbness stops feeling like failure. It starts to feel like balance. Moral clarity isn't discovered. It's built. Next video, how headlines create wins without changing reality. Subscribe if you want to see the structure before it sees you.